Welcome to the Tear Talk Podcast with author, coach, and speaker, MaShani Allen. Known as the Golden Scribe, MaShani has over 2 decades of writing experience, and her passion for the craft has given her the opportunity to impart wisdom, affirmation, hope, and confidence into many. Let's listen now as MaShani delves into topics that have impacted her on her Tear Talk journey and helped her discover the power of the pen.
Welcome to the Tear Talk Podcast. So glad to have you all today. You know, as we were preparing to come into 2022 in December, I kept seeing different social media posts and communications talking about 2022 is going to be your greatest year. And it was post after post after post and person after person after person, you know, greatest. That's the gist of what was being said and what people were responding to. And, you know, it just got to the point where I was absolutely annoyed. And my annoyance came from the fact that it was being portrayed that there's nothing that you have to do. You just have to keep saying this and poof, automatically, it's going to be your greatest year. And that just really bothered me. It troubled me because it causes people to have false expectations. Sometimes it has caused people, you know, to be upset with God when certain things don't end up happening for them because they've spoken, you know, that this would be the case. And I felt as though the narrative of that was not balanced. Because when you think of greatest, you know, generally we don't consider the effort that it takes for something to be the greatest. Like even as I was considering this podcast today, I started thinking like most times when the word greatest is used, it's after years of effort, years of training, years of study, years of discipline, years of work have been established over time, then greatness or the greatest has taken place in someone's life. It's not a happenstance. It's not a coincidence. It's based on things that they have done that has caused greatest to come into their lives. And I think this is why I was absolutely annoyed, because what I was seeing, it was as if it was portraying that greatest just happens. And greatest doesn't just happen. Greatest is based on effort. Greatest is based on work, and greatest is based on decisions and choice. And I just am a person who likes for things to be balanced. And when it's not balanced, it causes me to be frustrated because it leaves people with a false hope that things are just magically going to happen. And I ended up writing, it's actually in my blog, but I'm going to share this with you. But even as I was preparing for this podcast, there was another thought about greatest that came to me as well. So I'll share that after I read the blog. And this is what I wrote. I keep seeing posts about walking into the greatest year of our lives. Do we consider what greatest can really mean? Jesus' greatest year was his most challenging, most rejecting, most hurtful, most betraying, and costly year of his life. Which aspect of greatest are we using? The world's or the kingdom's? This is not to say greatest will always be negative and painful, but it should also be considered. Some will be angry based on what they will experience, but this doesn't stop it from being your greatest year. Perspective is everything. And many times we need to see the fullness of a word, not just the feel-good portions. Greatest should be based on an internal and not external things. Many decree and declare, but don't obey. Jesus didn't declare it would be his greatest year. He just lived a life of continual obedience. In doing so, every year was a great year, and his last year was the greatest. Lastly, the prophet Jesus proclaimed as the greatest lived on the outskirts wearing strange clothing with an unusual appetite. He was rejected but sought after. He was despised but needed. He was disregarded by men, but John the Baptist was regarded by God in heaven. Keep this in mind when considering greatest. It may not look like what you think, but that doesn't mean it's not the greatest. So this is the blog that I posted after reading so many different and seeing so many different things about greatest. And I think that's the other part. I shared it in the blog, but I just want to expand. A lot of what I was seeing, when it was talking about greatest, it was almost like, unicorns and clouds, like it will be no pressure. It will just come easy. It will just fall out the sky like a rainbow, like nothing, no effort, no work, no nothing, but you will enter greatest. And I just think that it's really unfortunate that so many people will grasp hold of a concept or a belief like that, but feel as though there is nothing that they need to do on their part for this to happen. And I think of, one of the easiest scenarios for me to think about is athletes. Like we see them, when they're on TV, we see them when they're in championships, we see them when they're at the Olympics, but we never see the full picture of what it took for them to get on those stages. We see them when they're in their 20s and mainly in their 20s, sometimes in their 30s, but we don't see what it was like when they were 5. When they were 10, when they were 12, when they were 16. We don't see the hours. We don't see the discipline. We don't see those things. We just see them on the stage. And because we haven't considered the journey that they have chosen to take to get to this place, we can look at them do their skill in a few moments. And if they don't meet, the potential to, get a gold or a silver or a bronze or a championship, we can totally disregard all of the effort that they did to even get on that platform. And I think that it's unfortunate that we don't consider the full picture, but we desire the greatest outcome. We have to be balanced. Even when you think of people in the business sector, you can see someone rise to the top, or in just any sphere, like even with musicians, we can see their moment of success or their moment of greatness, but we don't see the backdrop. We don't see the backstory of what it took. And it wasn't a poof, it just happened. And I think we need to be fully aware of what it takes for greatest. And I'm not saying that this can't and it won't be your greatest year. I will say it won't and it can't be your greatest year without you, without your work, without your effort, without your obedience, without your discipline. Because the way I was reading all these posts and all these decrees and declarations, it was just like, it's just going to happen just 'cause. Nothing in life happens just 'cause. Everything takes our participation. It can be your greatest year if you have a game plan, if you have accountability in place. And what are you wanting the greatest in? It's like what is your expectation for greatness? Is it you growing on the inside? Is it your character being better? Is it you learning a new skill or discipline? It's like what is it? We say it's been said like this blanket thing, but greatness doesn't look the same for one person to the next. So therefore, the discipline won't be the same from one person to the next. The obedience won't be the same for one person to the next. So it's really a personal thing, and you would want to have your system in place for that to take place. It's just not going to fall out the sky. And what I found is, as I've looked back over my life, some of the hardest times of my life in hindsight have been some of the best times of my life. But while I was going through it, I didn't see it as good, and I definitely didn't see it as best. And that's the part that I think is lost or never even seen, is that the greatest or the best, doesn't always look good, and it doesn't always feel good. And a lot of times those are the things that we try to avoid, when those are the very things that we need to become the best or to have the greatest. When I think of athletes and when I think of their discipline, and this doesn't speak for all of them, but for many of them, that discipline builds character. And a lot of times, in order to be the best or the greatest, character is needed, not just skill. And I mean, we've definitely seen it happen without the character, but to be a well-rounded person who can really benefit the world in a very powerful way, character has to be built. It is not something that comes automatically. And if you're desiring or you believe that you're going to be on, national stages or a person of influence, that character needs to be built and developed in a very special way, because it's not just for you to stay or to step onto the platforms. It's for you to be able to stay there and remain on those platforms. And it takes character, not just gifting, to be able to maintain it. And I think that some people can get frustrated in their journey because they're so busy looking at the clock, and they're looking at the years pass, and they feel as though the dream will never happen because of a time clock. But I think that if we want to be our greatest selves, we can't focus on the clock. We have to focus on our character. Because I believe once our character gets to a certain place, the doors will open, the platforms will present themselves, and the opportunities will become available. Because we have seen, all of us have seen, what happens when people are put in place before they are ready, before they are seasoned, before their character can handle the pressure that comes with the platform. And we become so frustrated and annoyed, not understanding that this journey is building our character for the platform. It's building our character for the influence. It's building our character, for the people that we will work with, for the people, for some of us that we will minister to, for the people, for some of us that we will lead, for the people that some of us will govern, depending on what sphere of influence you'll move into. You need the character and you need the skill. So I just want us to be balanced in how we look at the word greatest. And I mentioned this, so I can mention it now. I started thinking, like, in the Bible, what scripture, and it came to me immediately, that talks about greatest. And it's 1 Corinthians 13:13. And it says, "And now abide faith, hope, love, these three. But the greatest of these is love." And I was thinking about how love is the greatest, but love is painful. Love hurts. Love challenges us. Love pushes us. Love corrects us. Love chastens us. Love takes work, but it makes us better. And if your goal is to be greatest, for this to be your greatest year, it can't be your greatest year without love being in the mix. So that's going to require some work to be done. So I just want you all to be encouraged. Again, I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade. I'm not trying to put a damper on what your desire is for the year. But I want us to be honest that nothing falls out the sky and nothing just happens. For this year, again, for the new year, it's going to require a new you. And if you want this to be your greatest year, what aspect of greatest are you looking for? Is it in your character? Is this the greatest year of your finances? Is this the greatest year of your character? Is this the greatest year of your expression of love? Is this the greatest year of your gift or your abilities coming forth? It's not all in an overall thing. What area of greatest are you trying to accomplish? And what is the discipline? What is the plan that you have in place to be able to accomplish it? And also know that your definition of greatest might not match other people's definition of greatest. What you consider the greatest, some people may scoff at. Some people may say that was nothing, but to you, it can mean a whole lot. So you have to determine your own measuring rod with this. You can't base it on other people's success or other people's failures or other people's strengths or other people's weaknesses. This is a personal thing. I don't have a problem with people wanting a particular year to be a great year or their greatest year. But know that greatness or greatest comes with a lot of struggle. It comes with a lot of pain. It comes with a lot of work. It comes with a lot of discipline, because those are the things that birth greatness. It's not ease. It's not simplicity. And it's definitely not doing nothing. And I think that's what probably infuriated me, was from the way it was being portrayed from so many different places and people. It was like, you just speak it and it will happen. No, boo. You can talk all day, but if you don't have systems in place, if you're not disciplined, if you're not doing your part to help this come, it's not. But I do believe that if you do your part, if you put things in place, I can't say it will be greatest. For some it will, but for others it will be better. It could be good, and it could be best. And I wonder if people will be okay with that. I know I had something happen to me that was one of the best for me, and for other people it might have been nothing, but for me it was the best for me. But I put in the work, I put in the effort, I put in the time, I put in the discipline, and I was proud of me. It did fall out the sky. It required effort, a lot of it on my part. It required discipline, a lot of it on my part. And at the end of the year, I was able to declare that was my best in that area. Now, there's other areas that I need to come up to that level, So that's why I want you to be okay if you accomplish good, better, or best in an area. The next year, look for another area. And when you keep doing that area after area or multiple areas at one time, you could end up having a greatest year. But again, it's going to take you being engaged, you being involved, you doing your part, and you doing the work. But in everything that you do, and in all that you're trying to achieve, make sure that love is still at the center and love is still at the core. Because if you can become greater in your area of love, if you can love better, if you can love genuinely, if you can love without judgment, oh my goodness. That to me is one of the most beautiful things that we can accomplish in humanity, is learning how to love people without judgment. If you can allow your desire for good, better, best, and greatest to be the internal things as opposed to the external things, you have to know that's what matters most. It's not the physical things. It's not what you can get with your hands. It's what happens when you purify your heart. It's like if you can allow your insides to be the most beautiful thing, the most beautiful reflection, that's where greatness and greatest really takes place. I appreciate the external things, but I'm telling you, you let that heart get right, you let that character get in place, oh my goodness, what you'll be able to accomplish because of the person you are, not because of the skills that you have and the things that you have, but because of the person that you are, you will be able to have so much more influence because people will be able to see the sincerity, they will be able to see the genuineness, and they will be able to see and hear and sense the purity of who you are. That is what is lasting. That is what is powerful. And to me, that is what is greatest. I pray that this podcast bless you. And I pray also that the next time that you see that a Tear Talk podcast is available, that you decide to press play.
Thank you for joining the Tear Talk podcast. You can purchase today's featured t-shirt and learn more about MaShani by visiting MaShaniAllen.com. Also, check out her exclusive line of custom journals at bit.ly/The Golden Scribe.